And this is where potentially, as the models are becoming smarter and smarter, could not only replace the people, but actually create original and creative and high-quality content that surpasses the human ability.
So, Milos, just to shift gears for a second, I know that you're a tech optimist. You've been, rooted with deep love for technology forever. Where do you think we'll see the most advances in artificial intelligence? Which business sectors over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months?
So I think the biggest change that we're going to see should come from it. What the first part that we've talked about is the whole disruption of search. And this is something that could happen in the next 12 months, that ultimately people are going to embrace the search using generative AI and slowly move away and start eating away Google's ad revenue. The second one, I think, are consulting services. So we know that companies like McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group and even marketing agencies like WPP are developing their own variations of generative AI that is trained with their own proprietary data. One of the problems with current versions of generative AI, because it was trained on pretty much terrible writing and terrible data and terrible information. When I say terrible, the publicly available one. I always joke with my students that when you ask ChatGPT to write a student assignment, it actually sounds exactly like students, because it was learning from students' assignments. That was very readily available data for them to train with. However, OpenAI did not have access to proprietary reports made by McKinsey. They couldn't train their models, so it cannot it cannot create a similar type of report, because it basically barely ever saw reports like that. Now, McKinsey can actually utilize all of their things to train all of their existing data to train the models and start creating novel types of reports. And this is where potentially, as the models are becoming smarter and smarter, could not only replace the people, but actually create original and creative and high-quality content that surpasses the human ability.
That's really interesting. So I've been very bullish, in fact, about specialized AI, right? By sector. If you are in law, you create
Exactly.
a legal AI like Harvey and you stand it up. If you are in sports, you create a sports AI. What you're talking about is even more specialized. You're saying these companies in the consulting space, and frankly, probably a great entrepreneur will step in and push out against McKinsey. McKinsey doesn't always have the greatest reputation out there as it relates to brands that hire McKinsey. They could step in and disrupt and create specialized reports on the consulting side of businesses, whether it's marketing or supply chain or whatever it might be. That's really interesting. And then you can de-staff, essentially. You don't have to carry such a massive load of staff. You can save probably a ton of money with regards to in-person meetings and travel and conference rooms and beyond. That's a real interesting efficiency that you're talking about.
But it's not necessarily that you're only de-staffing. You could actually change the model where ultimately, instead of having a typical working relationship with a consultant, where you're going to have your account manager that you're going to work with, and then they are organizing a team in the back that is doing work for you. This could actually become a McKinsey's platform, where a company subscribes to that platform, and McKinsey creates a custom version of, or when I say McKinsey, it could be any of the big consulting companies, a custom version of their own software. Currently, some of these agents are still reluctant to do that, because it's such a big shift in the mentality of how they do business.
They're afraid.
Yeah, I had some conversations within WPP. I mean, it's a different type of business, but still, they don't necessarily want to monetize their stuff. They still want to use it internally for their own purposes, to make their own existing products better, instead of giving their own tool for subscribers to utilize, which could be, instead of you having your own account manager and copywriters and so on that are sitting in one of WPP's agencies, it could be that you just access their tool and it's going to do the same work for you, and you're paying a subscription.
So, for the viewers who don't know, WPP is one of the largest holding companies in the advertising space. And it's really interesting, Milos, because what you're doing is looking at disruption in advertising. You have generative AI, which can totally disrupt as it relates to filmmaking, content creation, visual stimulation, copywriting, script writing, etc. You have the data piece of it, which can, really be broken down. But what people really haven't analyzed yet is the media buying. So these massive advertising agencies really make a ton of their profit, their cleanest profit margin on the media buying side. And I would imagine that artificial intelligence will be superior to humans as it relates to identifying and securing the best place to stand up brands messaging, consumer facing at the best prices.
Uh, yes, but ultimately, in the long run, that is going to become a zero-sum game because as media buyers become more, or AI behind media buying becomes more sophisticated, the media selling is also going to be operated by AI. And you're going to have two extremely smart agents finding an equilibrium. And I think that equilibrium is eventually going to level itself out.
Interesting.
That it's not going to be a situation where one would be able to dominate the other. There is probably a situation where you're going to have a type of, let's call it the Cold War of media buying and selling, where both sides reach parity. And I think this is what we might see. At first, the media buying might become more optimized and start generating more revenue as the big agencies will have more resources. But ultimately, as the media companies also become sophisticated, it might cancel each other out.